Hello, everyone. Welcome to Eye Opener Society and welcome to our Thursday night sermon. We are very happy to be here with you, and we're happy that we keep the consistency with these Thursday night lives because we keep getting better as time goes on with them. Uh, so, as always, I'm going to start off, and then after I'm done, we'll be joined by Lizzie, and Lizzie will give her sermon, and then we could wish you all a great night. But before I go on with any of that, we wanted to make the announcement that we have another new minister who will be joining us on some future sermons, some future shows. You may have already heard her. Halos Phoenix. Wanted to give her a big shout out. I want everyone to welcome her, but she has recently been ordained with Eye Opener Society, and we look forward to everything that she has to offer to us. And she has some great and wonderful things as well. So I wanted to start off by saying, what's in a name? What's in a definition? We could take so many different words and we could transform them into whatever it is we want. Um, at least here in the United States, we have the freedom of speech, and that includes believing what we believe in when it comes to a word. So when we take the word church, what exactly is that? What exactly are we saying with church? See, Merriam Webster's dictionary states it's a building for public religious services. And then they say, especially Christian worship. Or it's a body or organization of religious believers or the clergy of a religious body. You could take any of those definitions and interchange them, whatever you like. But I could take what I learned a long time ago when I was under the whole Catholic religion and I was going to religious instruction. And the instructor, don't remember her name or anything like that. It was many, many years ago, but something stuck with me where she had asked, "What is a church?" And everybody said, "Oh, it's the building, it's the house of God, and all that." But she had defined it differently. She says, if a bunch of people got together out in a park to talk about God, is that a church? And I still remember that to this very day from childhood. It's just a group of people. We don't need a physical building over us. Church is a noun, is a building, but church could be defined as a group of people all discussing the same religious belief. Or, in Eye Opener Society's case, could be a group of people all discussing religions on all terms, spirituality on all terms, as well as the metaphysical in all terms. And then we have a ministry. Now, a ministry, it's a form of service, all right, the work of a religious leader or community, um, active service performed to express faith and help others encompass both spiritual guidance, preaching, and pastoral care and support. I like that one. That one fits Eye Opener Society almost to a T. But if we combine those two words, church, ministry, and we use the word society, are we changing anything? By legal standards, Eye Opener Society is a religious organization. When we throw in the tax man and we throw in government and all that, it gives certain definitions in order to fit a certain thing, in order for us to be established, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing, the IRS cannot determine, nor can they establish a definition for the word church, because that would go against all beliefs of freedom of speech as well as freedom of religion. So therefore, they cannot define it, nor will they. And that's good because when it comes to a church, we're not here for political beliefs. We're not here for government interference. We are here to perform what we perform. And in our case, we're gathering a group of people, a society that's just expressing peace, love, metaphysics, spirituality, and whatever else we wish to discuss because it is our church, it's your church as well, or your ministry, or your religious organization. You could give us whatever name you like. It's fine. Going on further, we define ourselves as a church, and then we got to wonder about religion and what do we actually teach. And the thing is, we're not teaching any specific religion. We're a religious organization. Worship, when it comes to that, God is a source, all encompassing. Those are three different definitions. You could use whatever you like, whatever you believe in. God, source, all encompassing, universal consciousness. I thought about this the other night when I was thinking about what I was going to speak about on tonight's sermon. And I remember going through my course through the University of Sedona for the metaphysical. And there was a lot of God this, Jesus that, and all. And I said, I thought I was learning about metaphysics. I didn't realize, there's going to be so much God in Jesus. I only know about it because that's my past religion, when I was practicing Catholicism. But it quickly says you're defining God as a source. And if you believe that there is an all encompassing creator of all sorts and everything, well, don't we, by definition, fall under the category of everything? See, that religious instruction teacher also said, and I even remember this, what is heaven? Is heaven floating on some, cloud in the sky? That would be pretty boring. God is everywhere and in everything. So we can't define just one God all the time unless that's what you believe in. I believe in multiple gods, but I don't worship or pray to any one. And here's the reason why. See, us as human beings, we're made up of flesh, blood, bone. Most of us can believe we have something within us, a soul. But then there's a third thing that might also fit into that soul, and that's consciousness. We've never really been able to define consciousness. We're still trying to figure out exactly what that is. And I think without consciousness, what would we be? Now, to me, if we're talking God, we're also talking consciousness that we all have within us. And that's a beautiful thing. And what I was taught and what I believe, power of prayer, right? There's so many of these prayer warriors and prayer groups that go out there and they do their thing and they're praying to God for a specific result. The thing is, if there's been many, many cases where these prayer groups had great outcomes, perfect success. But the thing is, many people believe, oh, that's God. The thing is, if I'm praying over someone to heal someone and that person miraculously heals, God didn't just step out of the universe, come, trampling down, put his hands over it and say, okay, healed, and then turn to us prayer warriors and say, hey, I heard your prayer and I done it for you. It does not happen that way. It goes right to source, to God, to the universe, whatever it is, whatever word we use. It goes up there, and us as human beings, we have this power. And I say something that is so sacrilege in most religions, saying we are gods ourselves. Because we have access to the same source, to the same power, to that same universe to do these things. When we get together and we pray, or prayer warriors do this, they are talking to source. That power from source comes down to us through our consciousness, which then spreads to wherever it is that we are praying for. You could choose not to believe this, and I'm okay with that. Everybody has their own beliefs. But when it comes to the metaphysical, when it comes to spiritual, we're not designed for structured religion, saying we must grovel to a certain God. No, we have the same power, the same source, because we came from that source and we are connected to that same source. It's just a matter of believing that, reaching up and understanding that no matter how we do it, if we pray, if we do rituals, no matter what, we're connecting to that same source. And that source is coming down through us. We're very divine in that way. Our souls are still so connected. I believe our bodies are too as well. We just need to remember how to activate that. But for right now, for what we can do, some of us have much more gifts than most. And that's great too. But we all have that. And we must remember that we all have our own gifts. And it's just a matter of practicing them. And once we believe and we use the words, whatever word we choose, God, source, consciousness, universal, we're using that. It's part of us, it's in us. And we just activate it through that source. And then when we're down here gathering on our Thursday sermons, this could be church, a ministry, a religious organization, a society. We call it what we will. The power of words are very, very important. And if we're using them correctly, they're going to mean a lot to us and they can establish things for us. My name is Gary Dean. I thank you for joining me on this sermon. I'm going to turn things over now to our cosmic fairy princess, speaking of words, and let's see what she's got for us. Lizzie, take it away.
Thank you very much. That was a lovely sermon, by the way. Okay, for you. Now that you moved my screen around. When I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, I was thinking about how everybody kind of approaches truth a little bit differently. And something that's really important to me with this church is that, sorry, I'm just deciding where I want my thing at. That each person has the opportunity to explore their own truths. Because I do believe that each person has something very unique to themselves that they can only find within themselves. But I think it's also true that you see that reflected in the world around you. And two things can be true at once. And that kind of led me to what I wanted to talk about today, because my favorite way to explore truth, because when you try to go and broaden your perspective, there's like a lot of infinite possibilities, and that's hard. And there's of course infinite ways to go about it. But my favorite way is to play with polarity, duality, and unified truth. When I originally was exploring truth, I was trying to find like this core, deepest truth, this like undeniable, below everything, just foundational. But the truth is, it just doesn't really work that way. We all exist as everything, everywhere, everyone, in every way. But we're also in this beautifully and carefully crafted, limited perspective and experience of being a human, your version of a human. And so we actually, in a way, select our truth by our awareness of what we're willing to witness, hold, let go of, change, embody. We select our truth with our actions, our words, and the definitions and whys of life. The thing is when I first was exploring truth and I would reach a new layer of it, it was like it kind of undid that truth. And I'd be like, oh, I was so wrong. And I'd try to like rewrite everything. And as I rewrote it, I would find that actually my new truth is true, but also the old truth is true too, just not necessarily in the way that I was viewing it before. The thing is when you find a new truth and it undoes the old truth, generally speaking, you're not getting rid of a filter or a lens, you're just changing perspective, you're changing the lens. And that's really useful to then get to know that experience, that perspective. But for me, my end goal is to eventually find where they merge together. So I define polar truth as two opposing truths, like good and evil. Duality is allowing those polar truths to exist simultaneously without undoing each other. As in, good and evil both exist and they're both right and wrong in their own way. Unified truth is where you begin to recognize where the polar truths actually support and reinforce each other rather than argue with each other, because that's typically what happens in the beginning of finding a new perspective. Is it feels like it's the opposite, it undoes the other one. But slowly, when you give it space to just exist and everything to move without you holding and defining, those polar truths kind of start merging into one truth. And when it becomes a unified truth, it actually, they support each other and they support you in what you're trying to do. And so if it doesn't get to that, then you're not there yet. You're exploring this perspective. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing to rush. You'll just like fuck yourself up anyways with that. By merging polar truths, you slowly reveal a broader truth that is more useful, but that is yours to determine. It can be true that a person's behavior is inappropriate and kind of makes them an asshole, but it can also be true that they were doing the very best they could with what they had and what they knew, and from where they were standing, that was the right thing to do. Both of those can be true, and when you give space for an example, their intentions were to protect themselves and their actions were not great. Both of those can exist at once. And when you give space for that, you get to see their perspective and love them where they are. And it gives them space to love themselves where they are, which opens them up to evolving their perspective to better see your perspective. When you see the way that they're learning to strengthen their boundaries and you're learning to soften yours, you see how the disagreement was actually beneficial for both of you guys, so long as you let go of what you're insisting on. The original truth is that their behavior was inappropriate and it makes them an asshole. The fact that the argument came out to resolve things you didn't realize were a problem doesn't undo that that was not a great way to handle the situation. That's still true. But also, the other one gets to be true too. And truthfully, this polarity, duality, unified goes through all of it. And that's personally how I like to explore it. Another one, a big topic right now that everybody's on, is how expensive gas is. It's true that the gas prices have gone up right now, but it's also true that the price of things are actually irrelevant to me. We are all infinitely abundant, multidimensional beings. That means that if the prices go up, either we'll have more resources to fund it, or it's in our best interest to drive less. Prices have gone up, but that doesn't have to limit you. That would mean that they are existing still as polar or maybe even dual truths. Sometimes it's an opportunity to look around and see what wants to shift in life. Maybe you get a grand idea for making some new money. Maybe it gets you to notice that your car is actually eating up far more fuel than it usually does and maybe needs some maintenance. Maybe you realize you are actually not that efficient with your errands and you can save gas and, more importantly, time if you just strategize a little, which will in turn open you up to more. The thing is a lot of the times we encounter these things that just seem like they're like what the heck. Good example, today, my apartment complex took the railing off of my porch. I just have no railing on my porch, and they've also taken all the wooding from underneath the cement plank. I'm actually uncertain if it's safe to walk on. My cats go out there, like, and they just left. They didn't inform me that it was going to happen. That just happened, and so I'm sitting there going, what the am I supposed to do? And I want to ask all these questions, and maybe I will, maybe I won't tomorrow when they're open. Like, when am I going to get a railing on my porch? The truth is that they should have notified me that's not safe to not tell a person you're going to pull the railing off of their porch. But it's also true that my cats will actually be just fine. They know where the edge is, and I locked the door. The kids can't get out there. It is safe. Both of those are true. And for whatever this is trying to teach me, show me, reveal to me, move me towards in life, I don't know yet because it just barely happened and I'm still processing what the heck. Because how do you, anyways, it's fine. I just, you got to be a little, remove the railings in life, I guess. Maybe that's the good reminder. When you're exploring truth, it's really easy to get caught up in that everything has like a specific meaning. But the truth is you do decide that. Is it teaching you something? Is it revealing something to you? Is it just a fucking annoying thing that people just didn't think about your perspective? And the truth is it doesn't matter, and you just get to decide. And so when something's happening and you're pissed about it, before you move, before you let it go, before all of those things, like just give it a minute to just be. Because sometimes we jump to an assumption, but a lot of the times that's just based off of our past pattern. And the more we can just allow things to reveal themselves and allow those truths to be explored without trying to define them along the way, the more we just open ourselves up to more potential, more opportunities. And okay, I think that's it. So thank you so much for listening to me today.
Well, that was absolutely fantastic, Lizzie. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to everybody that tunes in, joins us. Of course, if you miss us, this is recorded and we're going to get it up in a little while. And you can tune in whenever you like. But in the meantime, from Eye Opener Society, we thank you all so very much for joining us. And we'll see you next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our live sermon. Have a good one.